In today's world, there is a huge gender gap. We are becoming more and more a technological society, and unfortunately, women are not catching up to it. And today I'm here with Robyn Hauser Reynolds, who did a phenomenal documentary about this subject. And first of all, Robyn, I'd like to ask you, what prompted you to become interested in this subject?
Well, my daughter was studying computer science in college, and she called home talking about what it was like to be one of just 2 women in a class of 35, not really finding the support that she needed. And her academic confidence seemed to be at an all-time low in this particular subject, which surprised me because she'd never really been that way. At the same time, the newspapers, national newspapers, were saying that if you didn't have some computer science classes when you graduated from college, good luck getting a job.
Yeah.
And so then the White House issued a report that said by the year 2020, there will be 1.4 million computer science jobs and only 400,000 computer scientists. So that's 1 million unfilled jobs in the United States, and that just shocked me. So I decided to look into, what's going on? Why do we have this supply and demand gap?
And I found that really interesting. And can I ask, you have a daughter, do you also have a son?
I do.
Okay. Do you think this comes from socialization, from parents, school, society in general, media?
I think it's a very complicated issue, and the answer to your question is yes. I think it starts really early with the way that we treat our sons and our daughters, all of us, unconsciously sometimes it's more conscious. There are problems with the educational system. The number one problem is that we don't have computer science in schools. That's a big problem.
Even, I didn't interrupt,
No.
even today we don't have?
No, the majority of schools do not have computer science.
I'm shocked by that, but
yeah.
okay.
If anything, it's maybe offered as an AP class your junior year.
Advanced placement, okay.
But advanced placement your junior year, but other than that, no, it's very rare unless it's a specific, technical school or something. It's in most classrooms, it's not offered.
Okay, because that's really unfortunate and shocking because everybody needs it.
Well, at least everybody needs to know a little bit
about
it,
it,
right?
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have to at least know why it's important, what it is. We have Adam Messenger, who's the CTO at Twitter, in the film saying that you at least need to know, just the same way you need to know a little bit about economics, a little bit about law, you certainly need to know a little bit about computer science. And I think that if you want to get a job right now, and you can earn some really good money right out of college, you should know how to code.
Well, Robyn, how do you see this problem being resolved, or how do you see the future going, or can it be resolved?
Well, yeah, I'd like to think I'm being hopeful that it can be resolved. And in fact, we're seeing some schools are making great strides at increasing their numbers of women in their classes. Harvey Mudd is an example of that. They're doing really a good job of it. And what the president, Maria Clave, says is that you can make some simple changes that aren't that expensive that really make a difference. So make your intro level classes, not scary, she would say. Make them at a level where anybody can come in and understand it. And then, make the first homework assignment not too difficult. Take the overly enthusiastic men in the classroom and invite them to participate in sort of forums afterwards so that their knowledge of the subject at that point isn't, intimidating to women in the class. And often men haven't had any more classroom classes, classroom teachings of computer science, but they've had a lot more exposure to coding because they've been gaming since they were 7 or 10 years old. And there really hasn't been as many games that have been oriented or marketed toward or really developed for young girls. So by the time they get to college, they don't have the same understanding of the structure that's needed for coding.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I don't have kids myself, but it just seems like there aren't games out there for girls, and it just seems like boys are more tech from a very young age.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some games that are oriented toward girls, but just maybe not enough. And a lot of the games that you see out there are somewhat misogynistic, right? Not a lot of female heroines. And I would say also a lot of them are violent, so they just don't appeal to girls. I mean, that's one issue. Of course, the other issue is just the stereotype of a programmer. A lot of girls just don't want to go into the industry because they don't really see themselves fitting that stereotype, which is your 25-year-old, guy wearing a hoodie, sitting in the basement,
Working for Geek Squad.
or drinking Red Bull and eating stale pizza all night long. It seems like a very isolating job. It seems antisocial, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, there are incredibly creative jobs that you can have. Danielle Feinberg's a perfect example. She's the head of lighting for Pixar, and her team writes the algorithms that controls the way Merida's hair bounces in Brave. I mean, that's incredibly creative. That's very cool.
That is, and that's something too, because I hate to say it, but as women, that's what's on the cover of every magazine: hair, makeup. I mean, and men just aren't interested in those things like women are.
Well, yeah, I think the point being that people think that computer science maybe isn't a very creative job. And there is code and computer science at the base of medicine, at the base of fashion, at the base of movies. So the idea is that you can go in and really any industry you want. If you're a computer scientist, you can take it to whatever job you want to take.
Robyn, I've met some young girls, and they told me that some of them actually have an interest in computer science, but they don't want to pursue it because they're viewed as being not personable. Kind of goes along with what you said, the loner personality, and then there's so much pressure for women in terms of the way they look, and they're viewed as, like, sometimes I think nowadays being smart isn't cool, is what I get from a lot of young girls, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the stereotype of a programmer is a problem, and it's really a cultural problem, isn't it? So I think that to sort of debunk the idea that you have to be antisocial and nerdy and a white 25-year-old man to be in programming is an important thing. I think Hollywood has a lot to do with this too. If we can get women in leading roles, whether they're scientists or computer scientists or doctors. I mean, we need more women in leadership roles, more female role models, and I think that'll really help.
I absolutely agree with that. And I loved your title, Code, Debugging the Gender Gap. I thought, did you think of that, was that all
Well,
yours?
it takes a team to come up with a lot of things.
But I thought that was very creative. I like that a lot.
Oh, great, thank you.
And then you said you have a son and a daughter, correct? Did you were you oriented towards this before your daughter got into college? Like, were you already kind of thinking about this, or was it just when she got into school is when it really made you want to make the documentary?
Well, this particular film, I think I was definitely inspired, and it came to mind to me when she was studying computer science in school. I was working on a previous film, so I wasn't really focused on the gender gap in tech specifically until she started studying. And I think anytime you have kids in college, you start thinking about the job market when they get out, right? And the newspapers are talking weekly, national newspapers, about the fact that if you really want to get a job, study computer science. So that's really what inspired us.
Okay, because I see that more and more. Computer science is, I think I just read on Yahoo a few weeks ago, it's now the #1 field that's growing, but there's still so much more men in it. It's growing for men, not necessarily for women.
Right, so tech jobs are growing 3 times faster than we're producing computer scientists. I mean, think about that for a minute.
I know,
I mean, and it's a big problem. If we can't fill the jobs, then we're going to be bringing people over from overseas to fill the jobs.
And we kind of already are doing that, to be honest.
We are doing that.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed it, and I think what you did was amazing, and was an unusual concept for a documentary, or not the typical documentary about a social issue. It's a social issue we don't talk enough about.
Well, thank you. Yeah, right. I think the gender gap in a lot of industries is something that's important.